When I was a television reporter, I experienced firsthand the impact that media had on you, the public. Whether I sat in a court of law and saw how when video evidence was introduced, an entire jury could change their mind, or when our lead story was your lead talk of the town. Turns out that there is evidence as to why this is, and it has a lot to do with your brain. A psychologist by the name of John Sweller studied how our brain processes and remembers information. What he found was that our brain can sometimes be overloaded. There is limits to how much information we can process. So John Sweller coined the term cognitive load theory. But what he also found was that when the pictorial part of the brain, the part that sees, and the auditory part of the brain, the part that hears, when both were activated at the same time, you were more likely to remember the information. Now, this isn't just outdated information from back in 1988. We still see this apply today. Forbes magazine had released that 95% retention rate from video content. In other words, when we see video content, we have a 95% retention rate. But for text information, it was a 10% retention rate. And yes, I made sure that my visuals, that 95% was very large and that 10% was small, so you could remember it. You're welcome. In all seriousness, when I use the word media, I want you to think of information that's being processed pictorially and with the audio part at the same time. Now, when I made the decision to be a journalist, I got into the industry because I really wanted to help people. I wanted to give a voice to those who aren't typically heard. But what I found was that the more I was on the scene covering content, the more I was there capturing the worst days of people's lives. And that takes a toll. But after, COVID-19 happened, the CDC had released a statistic that kept me up at night. Suicide was the second leading cause of death for teens, ages 10 to 14, and adults 25 to 34. That statistic kept me up at night, especially the 10 to 14-year-olds. Because if you think about it, that age demographic has never even driven a car, gone away to college, let alone gotten married or found their purpose in life. So one day, while laying in bed, I started to think, what if media could be used for good? So I partnered with the two things I know very well, poetry and people. I gathered together videographers, audio engineers, and a group of therapists, social workers, counselors, and teachers. And we came together, and I had this vision. What if media could be used for suicide prevention? I went from covering the worst days of people's lives to making a commitment to just trying to save one life. Now, it's one thing to have an idea. It's another thing to put that idea into practice. So, we worked with a group of students. They gave us their feedback. We made the changes. But we ended up working with a group of 6 students, and one student in particular surprised me. Week 1, she came in and really had a hard time making any eye contact and let alone answering any questions. I don't recall if she said much. The second week, she answered the minimum questions required, but it was the third week that changed my life forever. During our check-in, she raised her hand and said, "Can I share something?" "Yes, of course you can share." She said, "This weekend, I was so frustrated. I got into a fight, and I was with my family, and I just was really upset. And I went and I stood on the balcony of our apartment, and I thought, what would it be like to jump?" And in that moment, I remembered what we talked about. And I went inside, and I grabbed my journal, and here is what I wrote. That story still brings tears to my eyes because that young student chose life. I want to acknowledge that this topic is very uncomfortable. For some of you, you may have experienced the loss of someone. I want to acknowledge that, and I'm sorry. For others of you, this may be hitting a little too close for home, but I want you to stick with me because my hope is that this next story will help some feel seen, heard, and known. There was another girl. In 6th grade, she battled self-harming, but she went under the radar because she was a high-achieving student. In high school, she continued to be high-achieving, and in college, she ended up, out of graduation, landing her dream career as a journalist. But the very same voices that challenged her as a 6th grade girl rose to the surface as an adult in her career. The voice of, "You are not enough," and the voice of, "Why does your life even matter?" That girl was me. And I'm sharing this today because media did serve as a lifeline for me, but maybe not in the way that you think. I've spent most of our talk discussing what it's like to consume content, but being the content creator was a part of a tool that helped save my life. It required vulnerability, bravery, honesty, and working with people that I trusted, all with the goal of saving just one life. Our teens are currently consuming information more than ever before. Research done by the Gallup Institute shows that teens on average are on social media about 4.8 hours a day. That's almost 5 hours. But I wanted to know, what are they online watching? What are they seeing? So let me tell you the top 3 platforms that our teens are spending time on. Number 1, YouTube, a video platform. Number 2, I want you to guess with me. What do you think it is? TikTok, number 2. Our third top platform was Instagram, correct. TikTok is a video platform, and Instagram includes reels, photos, videos, graphics, you name it. What that showcases is that media is at the palm of our hands and accessible. But the question that I am posing to you is that, what would it look like to use media for good? I believe that we all have problems that keep us up at night. Whether you are a business owner, a nonprofit owner, an educator, a parent, or simply a waitress with a dream, we all go to bed with thoughts and problems that we may be processing. But what I am here to tell you is, what would it look like to think about partnering with the very powerful tool of media to potentially serve a community that is keeping you up at night? Now, I'm aware that I'm speaking to a group of very smart people, because if you're watching TEDx, you're probably like me and you want to apply that information. And so some of you may be thinking, okay, Alexis, I get it, but what kind of content are you talking about? While I cannot tell you what exactly will work for the community you're supposed to serve, I do want to close by sharing with you one final piece of content. If you remember that young girl who struggled using her voice, who stood on that balcony and chose life, this is something that she heard and saw. The power of life and death is not in our minds, it's in our tongue. What we say is what we believe, and what we believe is what we see, but we cannot be anything different than thee if we sit in silence and allow a spree of dreams to become a fleeting thing. Triggers become blind spots. Suppression becomes a mindset. Obsession becomes a time lapse. Speaking your truth using your voice, a powerful outlet. But with fear and lack of ability to speak freely, you stifle your own dreams and choose to walk discreetly, but discreetly is not you completely. You are not needy when you dream deeply. Creativity. God made you free thinking. It won't come easily or come packaged neatly, but if you speak it, you can achieve it. And if your mind is racing with thoughts, let it have a track on this earth. Breathe in, excrete it, sit in peace, and redeem it. We are fighting generational patterns, fighting lies spoken over us, fighting an enemy's plans against us. But I believe there's a God that goes before us, fighting depression, perfection, and everything in between. But the truth cannot be found if carrying inside a bad seed, because those triggers become blind spots. Suppression becomes a mindset. Obsession becomes a time lapse. Speaking your truth using your voice, a powerful outlet. That square-shaped hole that they placed you in, you were built for so much more. A peg that won't be fitted, you do not fit in, because creativity lives inside of you. Your voice matters. That's why voices are fighting you. But emotions, they can be a sidekick. Speaking, it changes mindsets. Sharing, it helps the time pass. Speaking using your voice is a tool, a powerful outlet. The power of life and death, it is not in the mind. It's in our tongue. Thank you.